Hello and welcome to the Card Fellas podcast show. We are back with another shorty. We do a show once a week where we highlight a set. We're going to add another thing to our show repertoire now. We are going to be talking about a particular rookie year in a sport. And we're going to lead this whole thing off with 1985 baseball rookies. We're going to be talking about our favorite rookie cards from 1985. And each person on the show gets to talk about two cards. And Matt, I'm going to let you lead off with one of your favorites.
This one should be fun. And I think when we talked about doing a show, throwing out ideas. And I think this is a trip down memory lane for us, and it should be a trip down memory lane for everyone. And, we automatically started thinking like, okay, what are the 1985? I think you and I both agreed. It's like, that's the year that we really remember a lot about card collecting. Great year for cards, exceptional year for rookies, just a great year for baseball cards. So we thought, let's tackle that year first, and let's just do baseball. That's all we're talking about here, 85 baseball. And so my first card is, and this could have been any of his cards, but this card to me was like the holy grail. It's the 1985 Flir Dwight Gooden card. All of Gooden's cards I just absolutely love, just because I was a big Mets guy too at this time. Not only that, I loved pitchers back then too. So if you were like a pitcher who had all the right stuff, and he certainly did, it just was the perfect card. And the reason I chose the Flir card, because I also like the Topps card and I also like the Donruss card, but the reason I like the Flir is, to me, Flir was always it was an uncommon set. It was harder to find for me on regular trips to the supermarket or the corner store. And so the Flir felt like a little bit more of like a special card. So you had to go to your local card shop to really find the Flir. And I didn't make many trips to the card shop. So, when you got those opportunities, because 85 Topps, again, I mean, they were everywhere. You could get a pack of those for 25, 35 cents, whatever, at the local store. But that Gooden card, again, Dwight Gooden to me was a legend of this year. He started off his rookie season with 276 strikeouts. Rookie of the year, easy, no problem in 84. And then he follows that up with 268 strikeouts. I mean, that right there to start a career makes him an icon. The problem was he fell off hard. Personally, what happened to him, but professionally, he, I think, broke the 200 strikeout barrier one other time. So he really fizzled out. And it's a great reminder to don't get too overhyped by these young players that have a couple good years, because sustaining a career, over many, many years is very, very difficult in the majors. But this is my card right now. The royal blue, orange unis of the Mets. That's the card to me that back in 85, that was the card I wanted. That was the card I was chasing. So that's my number one, Chris.
That 1985 Mets. And, the terrible photography, you got the big shadow behind him. I mean, that card just says 1985.
It does. And I will say, the other Dwight Gooden card I might have picked was the record breaker out of Topps, where he's actually pitching. Because the other three is all him just close up. So that was the record breaker from 85, is him actually in action with his high leg kick and finish. So, again, the rarity of Flir brings me to this card, and why I think it's one of the favorites of 1985 for me. So let's get to yours here. How about your first favorite card of 85?
Yeah, I remember that as well. I remember going to having to go to the card shop to get Flir. We've talked about my exploits going to Osco Drug on my bicycle. We had Donruss at Osco Drug and Topps, but Flir was never there. Had to go to the card shop to get that. But I guess my favorite rookie card from 1985 is the Mark Mcguire 1984 United States baseball team card, number 401 from the 85 Topps set. Mark Mcguire he was my idol as a kid. I wore number 25 in high school. I played first base because of Mark Mcguire, also because my arm sucked and I couldn't really play anywhere else. So, I had to play somewhere where my throwing ability wasn't going to hinder anything. But I did. I wore number 25. This was a card that at one point in my youth was $100 card, and it was kind of one of those holy grail cards, one of those cards that everybody wanted. Mcguire in 1987 hit, I think he had 49 home runs.
Yes.
In the old MLB game on the original Nintendo, you played with the Oakland A's. You had Jose Canseco batting third and Mcguire batting fourth. And, man, those guys, if you took the Oakland A's on old school MLB on NES, you would just crush. You had Dave Stewart pitching. It was crazy. So I really enjoyed that. And when I got back into the hobby during the pandemic, this was a card that I actually bought one of these cards, basically right before I got out of collecting in the 90s, and put it in a box and gave it to my dad and basically put it in a safe. I had a bunch of cards in there. I had a Barry Sanders 89 score rookie, kind of the cards of that era, and I just locked them up, and I hadn't looked at them since the 90s until 2020. And he brought this card back to me. I was so excited to see what it looked like, and it was just junk. I mean, it was like a PSA 5 card, and I'm like, this isn't going to go to PSA. So I have bought a few more since then, and picked up a couple raw that I would say are probably 8s or 9s, and I've paid less than $20 for both of those. So it's a card that definitely has become much more affordable. But Mcguire, to me, still one of the most prolific hitters, home run hitters, certainly of all time. The legacy tarnished, of course, by being a steroid era guy. I remember going to a baseball game at Wrigley Field with a couple of my college buddies in 1998, and that was the year that Mcguire and Sosa were battling it out to beat Roger Maris's record. And we were sitting up in the grandstand behind third base, and Mcguire hit a ball. So Waveland Avenue runs perpendicular behind left field, or not perpendicular, but parallel to the left field bleachers. He hit a ball over Waveland, and it hit a car on a road that was running perpendicular. It's Kenmore Avenue. Hit a car on that road. Like, it was insane. It was something that you would expect to see in batting practice, but it actually happened in a game. And I've never seen a bomb hit like that in person before or after that happened. And it was just one of those things, like, I already liked the guy, but when I saw that, it was like, yeah, that's why I like this guy. So the card itself isn't rare. It is extremely rare in a PSA 10.
Yes.
There have been almost 50,000 of these cards graded. It's the most graded 1985 Topps card in the set, but there are only 305 10s in existence. And that's it's less than 0.5% gem rate.
Yeah.
I did read this card was on the edge of the sheet. So by the time it gets to that point when they cut, it was just off center a lot.
Sure.
I think, again, this is a card too that in the 80s probably changed hands quite a few times, just because, these were, everybody wanted them. And if you had the money to buy them, you were buying them. So I think a lot of the ones that just were out there changed hands a lot. The other thing that's kind of cool about this card, if you look on the back of it, it shows his college stats. And in 84, in 65 games and 237 at-bats, he hit 31 home runs. And he averaged basically a home run every other game. But if you look at what he did at the Olympics, which were played in Los Angeles, he hit 190, struck out 6 times in 21 at-bats, and never had an extra base hit, so just 4 singles. Yeah. So guy that hit home runs in college, hit a ton of home runs in the pros, did not hit home runs in the college game. That USA team, so the 1984 Olympics, baseball was actually a demonstration sport, so they did not play. They did a tournament, and we did get a winner, but no one got medals.
No medals.
And the Team USA got second. They lost to Japan in the championship game.
Yeah, I remember that card too. And the interesting thing about that card, and I think another part of the reason that maybe there aren't as many in good shape, is back in 84 or 85, Mcguire wasn't really a highly touted prospect as far as what I can remember. So you had to kind of go back and search for that card back in 87. So once he burst onto the scene and he was, like you mentioned, hit his 49 home runs, everybody's like, whoa. And then they realized this guy had a card in 85. We need to go back to our 85 stacks and find it. That's what I remember from that era, was that card was kind of hidden for a while until people started realizing, hey, he's in an 85 set. So that 87, where he's with the A's and he's got his bat pointing, like that was his rookie card. But he's got an 85 card that you guys should go look for. And I remember pulling out those cards, and to your point, mine was all wrecked because it was sitting in a common box. So that was one of the things that I remember about that card, was it was kind of a late bloomer, if you will. Sure. But one of those great cards, and sure tells a story. So
yeah. Well, the other interesting thing, I guess, is that Topps chose to put the 84 Olympic team into the 1985 Topps baseball set, but the 88 Olympic team went into the 88 traded set. So yes, you would not find those in 1989 Topps baseball. They put it in the 88 traded set. So
speaking of traded, we're going to go to my second card. And this card is something I just remember it being such an iconic card for my circle of people. It was the Vince Coleman Topps traded card. And it was one of those years where all of a sudden Vince Coleman was everywhere. Like, he burst on the scene, and I mean that quite literally. He had over 100 stolen bases his rookie year, and he was the rookie of the year in 85. And everybody's like looking for his card, right? And so the expectation was, it'll be in the traded set. It'll be in the traded set. And back then, baseball was so different, right? It wasn't just all about it was all about the home runs. Like, stolen bases actually meant something. You actually had 2-to-1 baseball games. So guys with wheels were really, really valuable. And so he was that guy. He could cruise. Like, he was unbelievable on the base paths. So when you look at it, he started his career with 3 straight years of 100 stolen bases. And so that was a difference maker for him. There were guys that were, stealing 30, 40, 50 on a regular basis. This guy came in and he was stealing 100. So it was one of those cards that everybody wanted once that traded set. And again, it was one of those cards that you had to buy the traded set to get it. So it was a little bit more uncommon. So that's kind of the way I looked at both of the cards that I chose, was the uncommon way to get these cards. And then the other part of this was the neon back was the other thing that always stood out. Was the Topps traded always had a little bit crisper look to it on the back, and that this was no different. But in doing my research about Vince Coleman, he was the rookie of the year in 85. He was only an all-star twice, and then he started to break down as a player. You look at his stats in 1990, so he had a very short-lived career when it came to really being productive. So it's just interesting to kind of jog your memory on cards from the past and guys who you thought were just iconic, and then you look at their career and go, boy, they sure fizzled out. And you don't remember the fizzle out, you just remember the high times that they had. And that's what the hobby is great for, is you remember the cards and you remember those moments, but you don't really remember this guy's whole career. The other card that I was going to maybe pull from this was Eric Davis. The other, he was another guy that kind of burst on the scene, and it was, and then he fizzled out. But 85 was just so many. We could do so much more on this year of baseball. It was just such a good year for sports cards and sports card collecting. Just so fun to go back and look. But we had to get it down to 2, and I picked my 2. So I'm going to let you take the fourth card of 1985 and take us home here, Chris.
I got to talk about this card first, though. The photo is I love it. And a friend of mine, I remember going to his house, and this was probably in like 2000. And his dad had this picture of himself fly fishing out west somewhere in the mountains. And he's wearing like gym teacher shorts. And I mean, this picture had to have been 20 years old. And he's fly fishing, and the background is just spectacular. And he's got the gym teacher shorts and like the 1987 tight, polo shirt on. And it's just majestic. And I'm like, man, I wish someday I could get a picture of myself that's as majestic as this is. And this card, I think Vince Coleman probably he's got to have this thing framed in his living room. I mean, look at the biceps.
Yeah.
He's running. I mean, he just looks like an athlete. He's kind of got a nice narrow waist, but a big chest, and he's got the big biceps bulging out. I mean, if someone took a picture of me where I look like that, I would pay money to have this put up in Times Square. I mean, that's how great that photo is.
Put it on a T-shirt and wear it around, right?
Exactly. That is
cut off the sleeves.
Beautiful, beautiful photo of Vince Coleman. And it was, like you said, it was a fun era of baseball. You had Rock Raines back then was stealing a bunch of bases, and Ricky Henderson, of course, was kind of the master of that. But it was definitely a different game at that time. So my last card is a Kirby Puckett, and it's a Donruss card, which we haven't talked about yet. Of a lot of personal history with that Mcguire card. This one I really don't. I just love the photo. Kirby's other rookies, the tops, and the Flir card are kind of in action type photos, but I think they look grainy. Especially the Flir photo is kind of ugly, and I think back then, again, the photography wasn't as good. This photo is really well lit. Kirby's got a nice smile on his face. I just like it. I like the black background of the '85 Donruss. I mean, obviously, Donruss puts the year on the front of the card, but if I were to take that year off and show that to a person and say, what year do you think this is? I would guess 1985 would definitely be the most popular choice, because it definitely looks like 1985. And I've got some really cool other 1985 Donruss cards. I love it. Kirby would go on to win the World Series in '87, '91, kind of become that Minnesota legend. Lost his vision in the right eye during spring training, in which he was tearing up spring training, forced to retire. He was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame in 2001, and then ran into some legal troubles. And then in 2006, died of a stroke. Yeah. So kind of a guy that was really beloved and really thought of as like, he just looked happy playing baseball. He kind of had that little bit of a belly look to him, kind of looked kind of Tony Gwynnish, kind of a jolly fellow looking kind of dude that was out there. And but unfortunately, the last few years of his life were not the greatest, but obviously incredible baseball player, won a couple of championships, still very, very popular in Minnesota, still thought of as kind of a god. Number retired there. This card at PSA, 5,547 of them graded, and just 338 are PSA 10s. That's a gem rate of about 7%. Most of these cards, when they get graded, end up being 8s, and that's probably due to those black borders. The card stock is also flimsy and very prone to scratching as well. These cards are. And I'll tell you one thing, I've opened in the last few years and you just did some 1986 Donruss for the channel. I've opened a ton of 87 Donruss and a little bit of 85 Donruss. Those cards are not coming out of those packs, gem mint 10s. So I don't expect that gem rate to go up. So if you want this card in a gem, I just don't think there's going to be that many more. We talk a lot about junk wax era or junk slab era, perhaps on its way. This will not be a card that will be affected by that. PSA 10s right now, this card is selling for about $500. I think the steal of the day, though, is this card in a PSA 9 for just $50.
Yeah, that's a great deal. And this is a great card. It is. I thought about maybe doing the tops. I do like the tops version of Puckett's rookie year, 85. But to me, the Puckett 84 Flir update will always be his rookie card. And that's the holy grail to me. We've talked about that before. Is that his rookie card? Is that the blah, blah, blah? But, this is another, that Donruss set. A couple other guys we didn't talk about that could easily have been on this list. Roger Clemens. He has a nice, I like his Donruss card. The other ones are more posed. Like the Flir ones of him's like the side of his face, so it's not a great picture. One card to look up is a Flir '85 Ricky Henderson, great looking card. Not the update, but the base card. Yeah, just a lot of just sweet cards. 80, I love the tops design. We like, we talked about the Flir being a little bit, it's just harder to get, so that made that more appealing. Donruss looks sharp. It's a really good year for the look of the cards and then the players as well.
I had a 85 Donruss, Don Mattingly, that was in fantastic condition. Sent that into PSA, got a 9. And if you want a kind of a card that says 1985, it's a wonderful card. He's got the stash and everything going. I mean, that thing says 1985 as well. I mean, it is really cool. So, like you said, there's a lot of really cool cards from that era. It was a great year for baseball cards.
It was indeed.
Well,
I have nothing else to say about this.
Yeah, let's wrap it up. Thanks to everybody for watching and listening. And if you're watching this on YouTube and you thought it was cool, leave us a comment and tell us what some of your favorite rookie cards of 1985 are. And if you've got a favorite year that you want us to talk about, we'd love to do that as well. Thanks again for watching, listening. We'll talk to you next time.